TYT. TYT is a textured yarn tester. It's designed to measure the yarn development of a yarn, and this complies with an ASTM standard, which is the traditional skein test method for testing yarn. This machine is fully automated. It's a dynamic tester, which means we're allowed to test long lengths of yarn in a very short period of time. It's a very efficient method of measuring yarn crimp and yarn development. The machine is comprised of two zones, Zone 1 and Zone 2. Zone 1 is where we put the yarn through a heater, and as the yarn passes through the heater, the yarn will develop bulk or crimp, and we will measure the difference of the yarn coming into the heater and the yarn exiting the heater to determine the percentage of change in the yarn. We have an input roll, an output roll at the bottom of the heater, and as the yarn is moving, we're going to compare the speed between those two to determine the percentage of yarn change or the percentage of crimp. We also have a pre-tension device which is used to control the tension on the yarn as it enters the machine, so that the yarn is under a controlled tension coming in. The Zone 2 is comprised of this roll, which is the intermediate roll, and the output roll, and the Zone 2 yarn sensor. This zone is used to measure the total shrinkage in the yarn. This Zone 2 is a much higher tension than the Zone 1. In Zone 1, we have the yarn relaxed. As it goes into the heater, it is in a relaxed state. So we actually measure the change in the yarn with very little tension on the yarn. In Zone 2, we stretch the yarn to remove the crimp, straighten the fibers, and we measure the yarn shrinkage. So we're measuring the crimp and we're measuring the shrinkage in a dynamic fashion at speeds up to 120 meters per minute. When we start a test, we tie in our yarn. We have a knot. Then we start the machine. The yarn is traveling. The input roll, Zone 1 sensor, through the heater, into Zone 2, and the output roll, passing the knot detector. That gives an indication that the machine is fully threaded and begins to collect the data for the yarn. This unit is the control console for the TYT. This unit houses the computer and the interface for the machine. We have a control panel here, which is for the TYT. We have the main power. We have speed controls. And we have temperature controls. So this is the startup screen for the TYT software. We have the choices to open a test, open a setup file, or just go to a blank setup. In this case, we'll open a test file. Open. These are existing files that are saved in the system. We'll pick one of these. Okay. When the software starts, it always goes to this calibration screen as a reminder to the operator to check the calibration before doing any testing. This is the setup screen. We have two tabs, setup and run. This is the setup tab. On this tab we have the menu, zero calibration, test setup, heading information for the report, entanglement testing, parameters, package changer setup, reports and export setup, and the last is a diagnostic screen. This is the run screen. The run screen contains operator interface as well as test data section on the bottom. In this section we have some information fields such as test count, temperature, speed, test length, and testing indication. Red, it is not testing. This area here is a testing queue. This is where the package numbers are entered in for the yarn that will be tested. At the bottom of the screen, we have test data. We have three tabs: test data, summary data, and graphs. Summary data, test graphs, and the test graphs for the various measurements of the yarn. The test data screen has the package number in the first column, total percent recovery in the second column, crimp percent in the third column, shrinkage percent, entanglement count, entanglement statistics, entanglement length without any entanglements, that's the skip length. Then we have the temperature and we have the speed. We're now going to run a test. We start the machine. Click begin. The screen turns green to indicate it's in testing mode. We enter in our package number, which goes to the testing queue. So package 1 is now waiting. When the not detector signal comes, the testing light will go green and it will stop to collect, passing the not detector. This test had 10 samples. At the end of the 10 is the average. Total recovery, crimp percent, shrinkage, entanglement, maximum skip.